Welcome to Lemonade Learning, a refreshing look at learning today. We serve up high impact practical strategies alongside honest and energizing stories to help educators.
Make the most of your moments, lead and learn with purpose, and craft lifetime lemonade from the sweets and sours of education. Join us for a glass.
Hey everybody, it's Bree.
And Lainey, welcome. We've got another special guest, and I'm going to let Bree do the introductions.
Well, I am super excited because it's not often that I get to introduce somebody who's not from Texas, and especially introducing somebody from California. But I am super excited to have the one and only Jerry Almendarez with us. I hope I got all of the vowels and the things right. If I didn't, Jerry will give me a hard time about it later. But I'm super excited to have Jerry here. I am so fortunate to have known him for a few years in a lot of different capacities through Digital Promise, through Future Ready Schools, through lots of different things, just following the incredible work that he does. But Jerry was formerly of Colton Unified, now at Santa Ana School District in California. I think it's like top 5 largest schools. I don't know, somewhere in there. Definitely for your area, a pretty big one with 40,000 plus students and about 5,000 teachers, I think, somewhere in there. So we're thrilled to have you. Want to kind of cut this intro short so that way we can jump into the meat of the conversation. But thanks so much for joining us today, Jerry.
Thank you for having me. Look forward to the conversation.
Well, we are excited. And yes, the funny thing is Bree has known you for years, and I live down the street from your district, and we've talked online, but this is the first time we're live chatting. So I'm very excited about this. So we always start off with our sweet and sour, and we'd love to hear what's going on in your world. What's sweet and what's sour?
Well, for me, the thing that's sweet that's going on in my world is probably my book clubs, and I'll share a little bit more about that. But I just love being able to have conversations about either current research or current topics that are relevant to what we're experiencing right now. And I think the sour part is, just the frustration with not being in-person instruction right now completely, but knowing that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that we're getting there fairly soon, is kind of easing the pain on that end.
Yes. Okay, now you gave me an in, and I'm going to take it because you talked about the book clubs, and that's actually a way that you and I connected, is that you were doing a book club on Adam Grant's Think Again with Pam Gildersleeve Hernandez, who I love. And anytime we can talk about professional learning, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Is that okay, Bree? Can we start with that? And yeah. This is a year of craziness. How have we learned in this? And so do you mind telling us a little bit about your book clubs and how that's kind of maybe helped through this time?
Well, I think being new to this district, coming in, in December prior to going out on COVID, I think probably my biggest strength or my greatest strength is my interpersonal skills, my ability to interact with other human beings. And coming into a new district 3 months in, COVID hit, and then all of that was taken away. And, as a new superintendent, expecting to lead a district this size and navigate through this unknown environment, I was at a loss. I was in my office. I was coming to work. There was nobody here. There were no students and teachers at the school sites, and all these unknowns. And I was really, probably on an all-time low when it came in, because I wasn't able to get out there and interact. So I thought, I need to figure out a way to be able to continue to communicate and interact. And I thought, I'll do a book club. And I started a book club with our admin team, and it was voluntary. And then that went well, that I thought I need to reach out to the teachers. So we started a book club with the teachers, and that went well. And then I had some teachers say, hey, what about kids? And so I started reading a few books with some kids, and we did the virtual Zoom hangouts and stuff like that. So very quickly in at the early stages of COVID, I was able to kind of fill my bucket. It was a personal really choice on my end to kind of help fill my needs, because the teachers were interacting with the kids, the principals were interacting with the teachers and the students, but it was, I was left out all alone and with my staff and my administrators, but it just wasn't the same.
Yeah. Well, and I think we all truly appreciate our superintendents. I don't know that they get as much attention for the struggles that they're having. We know how hard it is for kids and families and for teachers and all staff, but the weight of a superintendency is intense. And so I really love that you found a way to turn that into a positive, to stay connected to your community. And so I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we tried to have conversations about, like just the human relationship part. And there's a lot of books that I have and kind of the similar categories and research that we all operate in. And that's basically focusing on that human being and those interpersonal relationships and meeting those foundational needs first before we can move on to the academic. And so during this time of uncertainty, we just read a lot of those books and really was a way to have very vulnerable and personal conversations under the umbrella and the cover of a book. And there were tears. I mean, there were times when I was having conversations with teachers about their kids, and, teachers were in tears. I mean, I was in tears at some point in time because, hearing the stories, then going out and visiting them, the Zoom links, and just seeing the emotional strain that it put on people and principals and teachers was really tough. But the cover of these books really gave us a safe space to express ourselves.
I love that. Well, I'm not one to shy away from tears. If you any listeners of the show know that I occasionally shed some myself. So
no crazy waterworks today. No. We're happy. We're happy tears. We're happy tears today. But I think that, that's one of the things that we see. Successful superintendents are always finding a way to get onto campus, to connect with the classroom, to see what's happening in action. And, when that moves into an online circumstance, trying to find those places and get into that, you certainly innovated that situation, right? To find, okay, this is what I've got to do. I've got to be able to be seen and see, not so much you be seen, but to see what's going on and understand what it's like to be engaged in a Zoom hangout. What's it like to, feel your camera turn on, turn off, any of the challenges that come in with all those different pieces. I think it's just, it's another example of putting yourself in that role of, both as a learner as well as a leader and trying to navigate that. I think that's one of the pieces, again, we've seen that success that happens when we're all in person. And I think that's a true example of a successful role of a leader in this online, transition as well.
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging. And I think, the question that I keep going back to is we should have been ready. We've been talking about this 21st century learning environment for years. And I think, we did the best we could do with what we had at that time. We had the devices. I think the staff development on all ends could have been a little bit more relevant to our current, technology. But, kudos to the staff, everybody involved, even the parents and the kids, adapting in a very short period of time, learning how to Zoom and to use Google, Docs and all of these various platforms to be able to navigate these challenges. And that's another sweet spot that I really am grateful for, is that there wasn't a lot of complaining. There was more, people raising their hand and saying, hey, I need help. I need help to navigate this space. And, being a superintendent that was, navigating this space with them, I've been dropped on calls. I've been frozen. As we learned more about COVID, and we started to go outside and started visiting school sites in classrooms. Granted, the students weren't there, but I could see the teachers navigating the technology that they had, and those frustrations to the students on their end being dropped. Coming up to a school and seeing a line of parents out in front of the office with their devices in their hands and their hotspots in their hands, trying to turn them in to get, either upgraded devices or different hotspots because the connectivity was an issue at home. So I think, those opportunities to be physically out there when it was safe to be, and then the opportunities to be in the virtual space kind of gave me a real good, clear understanding of the challenges that exist. And it wasn't just the teachers that had to transition, it was our admin too, because our admin weren't necessarily in that space as well. And so it was a real eye opener for all of us. But we think we did the best we could have done with what we had, and we're planning on looking different when we come back, and we're excited about the opportunities that lie before us.
I love that.
I think that's a really important point because we often talk about, when we talk about the professional learning, and I'm going to include students into that professional learning, right? Because we've oftentimes really targeted students and teachers for how do we, get them the information that they need, skill level, all of that kind of stuff. But administration has often not really been in that top tier of making sure that that they get where they need to go. And so can you share a little bit for what that was like of really, helping principals and their admin team kind of navigate that? Because, to borrow a phrase from Jimmy Casas, I know there was not a how to swiftly transition to an online environment in their principal school. So how did you kind of navigate that with them?
Well, what it was interesting because it all started with a conversation about students, and then it evolved from there to the administrators. But I remember being in a Zoom meeting with a bunch of district educators or leaders, and we're having conversations about how we're redesigning the classroom and the experience for next year when the kids come back. And then probably about 40 minutes into the conversation, I'm realizing, I'm looking at the screen and realizing we're talking about creating a new learning environment for kids, and there's absolutely no kids there. Get part of this conversation, and the light switch just went on. And I was like, what are we doing? We're gravitating back to our comfort zone. This is what we think they should do. This is what we think the teachers should do. This is what we think the kids should do, without including the teachers or the kids. And so, so then we fast forward to like the online staff development and started thinking, well, if we're going to expect this, then how are we modeling that behavior and those expectations? So, one of the things that we did is we just started being more inclusive. We brought kids into the conversation. We brought teachers into the conversation. Most recently on our social media posts, we brought parents into the conversation. And so, we think we were good listeners before COVID, and I think we were. I'm guilty of that. But I think subconsciously it was to check off a box and say, yeah, we talked to these stakeholders. I'm committed to redesign those conversations and rethink those conversations. And this is where Adam Grant, the book, comes in, is rethinking how we have conversations, because they're a critical part in redesigning our future. How can I design a future without including those that it impacts? And so my commitment post-COVID is to bring what I call reverse mentors into the conversation. People that are, up and coming or that are new and used to this, the devices and the platforms, and make them a part of the conversation, as opposed to me saying, okay, here's what I need as a superintendent. And I have learned so much from everybody, the mentors that I seek advice from. Granted, they haven't experienced COVID, but they have the depth of knowledge and the experience to navigate various challenges, regardless of what they are. But also from the new and up and coming, like yourselves, who are operating in a space that I, haven't completely occupied yet. And that's why you see me in spaces like Clubhouse and other online platforms, because I want to be a fly on the wall and just listen to conversations that are taking place, so it'll help me make better decisions as a superintendent.
So for the record, I learned Clubhouse etiquette from you, Jerry, because I was later on that boat than you were. So thank you for teaching me. So I think one thing I have noticed is that you have fully embraced being a learner. I'm sure you always have, but as I've come to know you, I've seen you having a presence everywhere, which I think is awesome, that you have this multiple ways that you're connecting with people through social media, like you said, your book clubs. And I think that's really important, that presence. Bree and I have talked a lot about presence on this show, and how that's something we kind of take for granted that happens in person. Although I think there's maybe some rethinking of the quality that happens just because you're physically in a room with someone. We have to be intentional with that. But I, as someone who doesn't know you as well as Bree, have observed you being very present. And I love the reverse mentors and listening to those who have some fresh ideas to share. So Bree, what do you think?
Well, The thing that was coming to mind as you were talking through all of that is I keep coming back to that word innovation, right? And how do we get to innovation? And I love the part about, one of the things I've always appreciated about you, Jerry, is your willingness to learn. As far as I've known you, have always put yourself in a situation to where you can learn what's happening around you, learn from different districts that are, what are things that they're doing, what are they doing well, where are some stumbles that we can learn from, all those different pieces. And I think that one of the pieces that comes along with that is when you go into a room to learn, you have a certain caliber around you, right? Like everybody knows you're a superintendent, but you're also able to come in not to try to set the stage of like, hey, Jerry's here, I'm going to take care of everything. You guys step back and look back. You're there to learn. How has that character of you, how has that helped you try to figure out innovation as we go through this? Because like you said, you're not coming in and saying like, this is what I need, this is what I want you guys to do. Instead, you're really, and I don't really even like the term like, top down or bottom up, or like the Oreo version of leadership. Like, I think it's truly like, you're bringing in, you're allowing the members of this community to truly lead innovation, and doing this together. So kind of, yeah, run with that. Talk to me about that for a little bit.
Lainey, I try and get in as many spaces, not because I have the answers or I have the knowledge, but because I don't have the answers or the knowledge. So I'm trying to calibrate in the various platforms and various spaces that I occupy, what those conversations are about. And I think, Brianna, to your comment, there's nobody that knows this community better than our community members and the district stakeholders. And they are innovative. They just don't know how innovative they can be. And so what I've learned over the years is like, it's not any one person that's going to have the answers or solutions. I can have an idea and I can say, this worked in this place in my previous district, but it may not work here. So what I've learned by occupying all these spaces is, one is everybody's looking for the same answers as I am. Everybody, they may think they have the right answer, but you aren't really sure because it hasn't necessarily been tested yet. And then, and then the next thing is like, everybody's trying to figure out, what are we going to do next? What does that look like? And so what I've learned as a result of all of these conversations is to be a better listener. I'm going to gravitate back to that, and not just listen this time to check a box, but listen and implement. So when we talk to parents and to students about what do you want your future to look like in the classroom or at a school site, and we have parents and students say, not that academics aren't important, but I can care less about academics right now, and I want to know that adults care about me. That helps me as a superintendent make the rollout of reentering school look a lot different than it did if I didn't include them in these conversations. And we've had hundreds of conversations with lots of kids and lots of parents. And we're collecting this data. I have our research department who's part of these Zoom meetings, and they're collecting all this data, and we're compiling that and we're sharing it with our administrators. So if you looked at my last social media post, I had probably about 12 parents, maybe 8 to 12 parents that attended our leadership team meeting. And we hold leadership team meetings every Friday. Those are my meetings, they're not principal meetings where we have an agenda. These are leadership development meetings. I have about 180, and Brianna, you were a part of one of those meetings when you were a guest of mine. But I was struggling with, how do I get my leaders to these parent spaces? And then the light switch went on after one of these conversations that I was a part of. I said, bring the parents to us. We meet regularly every week. So that's what that was. And the parents spent an hour and a half talking about the challenges they had this past year and their hopes for their children as we reopen. And it was a very, very vulnerable conversation, very powerful conversation to hear from parents and their challenges and the struggles that their children had. And I'm confident that we're going to take their input into consideration as we roll things out. So we're going to do that with students. We're going to do it with teachers. I've already had a group of teachers that I've already had initial meeting with. We're going to pull them in. And this cycle is just going to repeat itself throughout the year.
Love that. So I want to clarify, because I said I see you in all the spaces, but I didn't really say what you were posting about. And I should say that what I always see you posting about is that, yes, what do you need? Like, you're asking people for input. And then also what I really see you post a lot of, which shows me that you're listening, is you're lifting other people up and you're sharing about their successes and the good things that are happening with your staff and your students. And so I love that. I had a thought. Go ahead.
Can I add? I learned that from my reverse mentors like Brianna, who preaches telling your story. And this is the value. This is why the work that you guys do, and you guys meaning all of you in that space, are so valuable to people like me, because without hearing that over and over and over again, and then seeing it being pushed out on your end, really motivates people like me and my colleagues, and motivates me to encourage my staff to do the same. So it's that ripple effect that reverse mentors and all people have, that choose to tell their story in the various ways that they do. I'm sorry, Lainey.
Well, I want to jump in on that real quick, because I know that one of the conversations that we had when I got to visit with your team was talking about how so often we feel that it has to be like made for Hollywood TV story in order to share it. And that, it's truly the everyday stories, what does this look like for our kid who's not able to connect? What does it look like for the kid who has struggled and struggled and struggled, and then finally, the fireworks go off, and all of a sudden he's, found his way to push forward in that. And I hear so much of that in what you're talking about with connecting and listening to people, because so often we get stuck in that innovation piece where we don't know what to do, because all we see is all the things that need to happen, right? And so it's just this like, I'm going to freeze because there's no way possible that I can do all of these things. But the one thing that you will never run short of is people, once they're willing to, of sharing where their challenges are, right? Like, they're going to tell you, okay, this is the part that's hard for me. And then they'll also, whether it's by telling you straight out, or, if you have to kind of read into it a little bit, they're also telling you what's really important to them. And if like you said, if you sit and you listen for those things, instead of trying, you listen to learn, not listen to do, then you're able to piece all of those things together and really find where that next element comes in. And, I think that's one of those pieces that I certainly have learned over this last year, working with a lot of different districts, is that if you as a leader are willing to stand in front of people and say, hey, I might not have all of the answers, but I'm going to let you know what I know at this point. And that might be just you coming on to say, I don't know anything right now, but I know that, I know the minute that I know something, you're going to know it too. And what you're doing is establishing that relationship and that trust that's there. That goes so much farther than the person who only pops in to tell when something has been decided, right? Because when you do that, then you've undermined all of the culture that you've worked so hard to create. Like, you want to create this culture of a community that's all built together. And when that leader just communicates to tell the decision, then you're telling everybody else in your community, hey, I didn't really take what you wanted under consideration. Like, just go and do what I'm asking you to do. And I love that you continually bring that back in over and over again.
One of the biggest challenges that I had when, as we started to roll this branding part of the social media during COVID was some of our administrators felt like it was bragging. I don't want to brag. I'm not here to brag. I'm not here to boast. It's not about me. And that's one of the reasons why, Brianna, it was so important for you to come in at the time you did, because it's not about bragging, it's about branding, and it's about telling other people's story. And so once they understood the value of that, I don't know if you've noticed since your visit, but we've taken off. And we do a really good job. I'm so proud of our community. I have people creating Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts just so they can follow. Some of them we've recognized over the past months. Well, if it's Asian American or African American History Month, we'll highlight people in our district to promote them. Some of those people have created Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts just specifically because they were highlighted. And that's what this is all about. It's all about, creating the narrative, but also telling our story and making sure the right story is getting out.
Your story is part of our story, right? Like, and that's the part that we want to make sure that is understood. And it's a community. It's that piece of really bringing it together. You're knocking it out of the park. You're absolutely doing that. And I think that it's coming through in all of those elements. You're seeing that success return.
And what's exciting is when kids get back into in-person instruction, you're going to see different content come out. You're going to see learning, you're going to see the student engagement, because the push is going to be, let's show people how good we are academically and why we're so good at what we do. And we're going to highlight all of those, project-based learning activities and opportunities. And I recently got a brand new book that I'm excited about. You can see it back there on the table. And so that's next on my reading list. And Lainey, we have to circle back to that conversation, because I definitely want to pick your brain and help guide them.
I'm happy to talk any learning and professional learning. I love to nerd out on that too. So anytime you want to chat. You mentioned something, Jerry, that I want to be really clear of. Sometimes we record episodes really far in advance. We're not actually doing that for your episode. It is going to come out quite quickly. And you said something that I'm not sure we have addressed head on, and that is the fact that your district did not go to in-person this year. And, one of the things that's been interesting in my last year plus is that when this first happened, and I'm thinking March, April, May, June of last year, and I was working with teachers all around the world, it was this very interesting moment in time where we were all in the same place.
Yes.
We were all in the same place. It didn't matter if I was talking to a teacher in Brazil, someone in Hong Kong, someone in Ireland. I could talk to anyone in the world, and we were all going through virtually the exact same experience. But that has shifted. And we now have some that are in different places. And we've got parts of the world that are really struggling. We're fortunate here in the United States that our numbers overall are dropping. Yay, we hope that continues. Other places it's not. So I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about maybe having had the opportunity to watch others go back in person and looking to the fall, what are some of the things that you're thinking about as you make these considerations to move forward? And I wanted you to give as much latitude, but what are some things you're hoping to return to? Maybe what are some things you're hoping won't? What are the lessons learned, I guess?
So funny you mentioned that, because I had the opportunity to interact with people from all over the world too, educational leaders from all over the world. And one of the reasons we asked for that dialogue to take place was because there were other parts at the time that had already opened up. So as superintendents, as this national superintendent group, this country was in the same place. We were all still at some level of lockdown, but other parts of the world were open up. So we reached out to this organization to help us pull together some educators so we can ask them. Then the second wave hit, and then everybody went back to the same conditions. But what I've learned is that, it becomes an equity issue. Some communities have access to resources that others don't. In Santa Ana Unified, we were the hardest hit city and area of the county. We're a high socioeconomically disadvantaged community with a lot of first responders, essential workers that live in our community. So they were getting sick sometimes at 3 times quicker than other areas. And multifamily dwellings. So if one person got infected, they would come back and infect maybe 7 or 8 others. And so it hit us the hardest. And as the county was starting to come out of COVID, other parts of the community of the county were able to open up and we weren't. And so, but what we've learned as a result of that is, even though they've opened up, there's still some disconnect there. I mean, there's still some challenges, whether it's a hybrid model or other staggered scheduled times. They're still having challenges with students connecting and actually being present. Those students that have the resources are able to do a better job at it than others, but there are still some challenges. So what we're trying to do here as a result of that in Sinai Unified is to make the experience, to increase the engagement and the stimulating the students more in the classroom setting and not so much provide that direct instruction. So how do we get kids to want to come to school? What are some things that we need to do? In conversations with students and parents, we need to think differently. So why does school have to begin at 8 o'clock in the morning? Can it begin at 11? Why does tutoring have to end at 5? If my student needs help at 11 p.m. at night or 9:30 at night, will they have access to an adult or tutoring opportunities there? So we're looking at all of that. We're looking at staggered starting and ending times. We're looking at the curriculum that is provided, not necessarily, we don't want to go back to that direct instruction model. We want to go into project-based learning. There are some research that we've been doing with some of our future-ready partners out there that we're really excited about bringing in, and we're going to start small and pilot some of these programs. And if we have success, then we're going to replicate these. Staff development, not only for teachers, but for administrators. Myself, as a superintendent, I'm participating in some with my principals. And the reason why I'm participating in this professional development with my principals is because I want to know what they're experiencing, the research that they're embracing, and how I'm able to support it at the executive cabinet level. So and that's why these conversations that I talked about with students, parents, and teachers are so important, is because it doesn't end. We talk about redesigning our schedule, our starting at any time. We implement it, and then 3 months later we come back and we say, okay, how's it working? Is it working? What changes do we need to make? Same thing with the curriculum. I mean, there are all kinds of things that we have that we're very excited about. We have about 80 community leaders and parents, combined community leaders and regional leaders and parents from higher ed, our faith-based, nonprofit, parents, and elected officials that come together on a monthly basis that have a conversation about redesigning what it looks like. And it's called the DSDP process, the District System Design Plan, that we're working on. And we're coming out with a statement of purpose, talking about what do we expect SAUSD students to have when they graduate. And so it's basically a graduate profile, but in collaboration with all the community stakeholders. So we're excited. We got a lot of exciting things happening. We're looking forward to summer school and to August, and we can hardly wait to see the little ones and the big ones back in the classroom.
Okay, so I just have to quote you because this is important. How do we get kids to want to come to school? I love that question. I think we wanted to ask that question for a while, but I feel like maybe we thought we had too many constraints to ask that. So I love that you're rethinking all of these things. What does the school day look like? How do we shift to inquiry based, which, doesn't mean there's not instruction. It's just how do we switch to that project based learning so that we're really trying to get kids engaged and empowered and really make it less about the person in the front of the room, right? Like we want to make sure that we're really empowering our kids.
The interesting thing is we've had a series of conversations with students, and they'll tell you. So we ask them, that you get the answer to the question you ask. So we've kind of played around with some of the questions that we ask, but really it's like, what classes do you enjoy the most and why? And they will tell you what teachers, and they want to have fun. They want to have fun. They want it to be meaningful. They don't want to stick their heads in a book the whole time. They want to be able to work with their fellow students and interact with fellow students, and they want time to reflect, and they want time to work on stuff that they find valuable and important. And it makes so much sense. And it's like, how come we haven't been doing this before? Why? Because we haven't been good listeners. I mean, we say we've been listening, but have we really been listening? And my response to that is, for me personally, I want to say no. And I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed to have to admit that, but my commitment as we come out is going to be a better listener. And it doesn't just stop with students. You can have the same conversation with teachers. We We had about 38 teachers last week, and we were having the same conversation with them. What were your challenges, and what do you hope things will look like? They have all the ideas. I'm sitting there going, I want you to be on my committee. I want you to be on my committee. I want you to be on my committee. And because they were thinking of all the things that we were thinking of, but they're taking it to the next level. And if I have a motivated group of teachers that are already in that space, then let's pull them all together, give them some resources and support, and let them start piloting some things. And then the same with the parents. You know, the parents are like, we want to know what the teachers expect of us. Here are the challenges that my child goes through at home. I want to help the school, but I just don't know what's expected of me as a parent. Well, I'm sitting there listening to this. I'm going, well, why don't you know? Well, because we haven't done a good job of communicating that. So, you know, listen. That's my commitment, is to be a better listener. And the way of holding me accountable is by sharing that out on the various social media platforms, because I want people to see, and say, hey, what's going on there? You know, some conversations don't go as well as we hope. Most do, but those that don't, we reflect and say, okay, why did that go south? You know, and we make the adjustments and correct it the next time we meet.
It's like lessons in the classroom, right? Like sometimes it just doesn't go over, and we have to figure out what it was that didn't get there for that time. So that said, we keep talking about your social media. So share with us how people can connect with you, follow you, all the great things that are happening out at Santa Ana Unified. Where can we catch up with you?
So Twitter, we have a Facebook account, Twitter account, Instagram account, and LinkedIn. And we're working on a TikTok.
Oh,
we're working on a TikTok.
So why does it not surprise me? Because I feel like one of the strengths that I really see in you is, and again, this is more from like an outsider, but that you really focus on those multiple points of entry, right? Like you're not just going to do Twitter or just going to do Instagram. You're going to hit all of that. And it's not just social media either, right? You're still using the phone calls and the text messages and the emails. And it's like that word relentless was one that I have kind of clung to over the last year plus, is like, we can't give up on anyone. So we're going to be relentless. We're going to keep asking. We're going to keep listening.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, we got to go where the kids are, you know, and we got to occupy their space. And so I have a 10-year-old grandson that helps me, you know, stay relevant to some level. And then, you know, just the visits and the conversations with the student groups that I hang out with, you know, and just having the conversations. I'll share a little trick with you. I have, there's a couple of like Big Talk here. These are question cards. You guys are probably familiar with. Some of them are used for games, adults, but I take these with me when I go visit school sites, just to spark a conversation with young adults, to begin, you know, to break down those barriers and have the opportunity to begin to ask them some really, you know, real good questions about how we can help them. And the TikTok, we have some really good ideas related to book clubs. You know, there's some really cool things that are going on. I mean, stuff that's appropriate, but we want to start gravitating people that are already on that space to value and demonstrate the importance of, you know, reading or other things, you know, that we want to emphasize as a district, the socio-emotional part.
I love that, because what you just said was we're going to the people who are already in those spaces to learn what they do really well in those spaces, right? Like, I think that is a continuing element of your leadership. It's not, I'm going into that space to try to take it over and to start it to make it what I want it. You know, I'm not trying to take LinkedIn and shove it into TikTok, right? Like, I'm trying to learn from what's going really, really well in this area and figure out how we fit into that area. And, you know, I think that is so evident in your leadership style. And I think that we can all learn and take away so much from that, of how do we show that Santa Ana, or that our culture is, our community is present in each one of these cultures, instead of trying to make our community overtake each one of these cultures. And I love that. I love that.
And I'm not naive enough to know that they will only allow me in that space for a fixed period of time until they really say, hey, you know, this is what the adults are trying to do. Then they're going to find some other space. But, you know, it's our responsibility. If my thought is if I don't occupy these spaces and know what is out there for our youth, then I'm going to be making decisions that are generations beyond them. And that's not helpful. I mean, it's not going to help them, and it's not going to engage them in learning or get them to want to come to school. So I have to navigate their space to learn what appeals to them, so we can embed that in our system. And then if I don't, as a superintendent, I become irrelevant. It would be easy for me to stay in my office and not, just read the current research and meet with my staff and say, okay, go do these things. But at some point, that will plateau, and then I'm going to be making decisions that are not relevant to our current youth and staff. So it's my responsibility as a superintendent to make sure I occupy those spaces, not only for kids, but for teachers too, and make sure that I meet their needs as well, because we need teachers of the future to be innovative and engaging as well.
It's like a form of electronic empathy. I mean, it's like, you're going out there to see what is happening and hear what's happening and learn, what their experiences are. And I think that's, I mean, if that's not future ready and turn of the century type of situations that we're running into, then I don't know what is. So yeah, we'll love it.
Your collaborative leadership style just really comes through. And I hope that for other leaders, and I think at every level as an educator, whether you're superintendent, classroom teacher, paraprofessional, we can all be leaders, right? I think that collaborative approach is really what's going to keep us moving forward. And so I just want to take a moment to say thank you. I think you're very humble and modest, and I appreciate that. But I also want to make sure to honor the fact that you are very transparent, very authentic, and very vulnerable in your practice. And I appreciate that. And I hope that other leaders, again, whatever your role is in education, I hope they're looking to you and folks like you who are out there really listening and collaborating, because I think it's going to make all the difference. I'm super excited about the things that you're thinking about for next year. I hope others are thinking about those things too. It makes not only my teacher heart happy, not only my coach heart happy, but my parent heart happy to think that we have education leaders who are really taking this opportunity to rethink roles and redefine structures and all of that. So very exciting.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like I've made it to be on this platform here. I've watched numerous videos and numerous interviews that you guys have done in the past, and I just value the work that both of you do, and just appreciate how often and how willing you are to share them and encourage others to lead the way. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
You're too kind, and we appreciate your time, and we're going to probably have to let you go here pretty soon. We're going to have all of your Twitter, I can't even list all the social media platforms you're on, but we're going to have all the socials in the show notes. And we have a new website, and so we're having a little more space even to really pump up those show notes. So Jerry, if there's anything you want us to put in there, if you have an upcoming book club that's open to everyone, let us know. We'll add that there.
I do. And I want to share this with you because I'm really excited about this one. The book is called What Happened to You. Oh. And I don't know if you heard about it, but it's by Oprah Winfrey. And
I did hear about that. Yeah.
It is amazing. And it's so relevant. Bruce Perry. And it is so relevant because it's about trauma and trauma that kids are going through. And it's told through stories. So it's not an academic focused book. It's told through stories, and I cannot put this book down. I'm almost done with it, but I'm going to read it with a teacher. So I'm getting it for my teachers. They're going to have it for the summer read. And then when we come back, we're going to have a couple of book discussions about it, because I want them to wrap their heads about the trauma, not only the kids are experiencing, but there's a lot of trauma that as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, okay, I know people, even myself, have some of the rationales to why, people react the way they do. So this is one that I'm excited about here.
I love that.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you for all of your time today. I got so much out of this conversation. I cannot wait to put some stuff in action and then just keep watching the incredible work that you are leading, that your staff, your teachers, your faculty, your students, all of them, everybody is just doing such incredible work, and we're able to see the stories because of because of your ability to help push it out there. So thank you so much for jumping on and sharing with us. And we cannot wait to see where this next year takes you.
Hey, thank you so much for the invitation again, ladies. It was a pleasure chatting with you both.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for listening.
All right. See y'all later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this batch of Lemonade Learning, please check out our website, lemonadelearning.us, for more resources. Be sure to subscribe today so you don't miss out on future lessons, laughter, or lemonade.
And if you're feeling really generous, please go to Apple Podcasts to submit a review so other educators know the value. One last thing, Learning and Lemonade are best together. So please connect with us on social media using the hashtag Lemonade Learning to share your story. Plus, we're always looking to give away stickers and swag.